Interesting.
So I'm not expecting any substantive conversation tonight on
Put them in order of my priority.
financial policy manual.
You've already done that?
It's in order of my priority.
For review, and my understanding is that that hasn't happened yet, so my intent was to let the board know.
That's so
there's no
obviously
circular
not
ahead.
true. It's like it was the worst.
So keep walking.
worst
on.
Obviously,
Well, it's because I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the hell is she talking about?
All right, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. Today is Tuesday, August the 6th, 2024. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. We're to begin this evening with board comments, and I'd like to start with one. Public comments, and under public comments, we have board comments, and I'd like to start with one. A little lengthy. Serving on this board has been challenging, to say the least. It took me almost a year to understand the cycle of the board, another year to feel more competent and see opportunities for improvement, and it wasn't until the third year that I thought that I could actually contribute to meaningful change. For me, the exceptionalism of our nation starts with the shared recognition of the supremacy of law and the secured right for every individual to decide their own destiny. Government is here to do those things it must. It regulates when we as people intersect our own existence with that of others. Government, aside from education, is here to do the least, not the most, those things we can't do better ourselves. Being elected is quite an awesome experience in and of itself, but I have said often and much that power is something we hold, not something we have. It is given to us in trust and is temporary. As a member of this board, it's not prudent to speak ill of our staff during these meetings. It is also imprudent to directly conflict with the town manager during a public meeting. The town manager is our employee, responsible for nearly all other employees. It's bad form to, in the first instance, offer a critical opinion that could have been offered privately. Every public and private praise that I've offered the former town manager has been sincere and genuine, and I've offered a lot of positive feedback. Kudos. Heather is an amazing person, a truly remarkable human being, absolutely phenomenal in nearly all critical aspects of the role in which she served. But I've been on this board for 5 years, and in my opinion, folks, things are not looking good. We have employees who are doing the impossible each and every day. They're holding all these strings together, and we are, in large part, failing them. The problem isn't just pay. The problem is culture, and change must start with this board. We don't have a personnel committee. They all resigned. The sewer commission will be down to 2 people at the end of the month. We haven't had a full-time land use director for quite some time. He quit. No public safety clerk. We don't have an IT director. The assistant to the sewer business manager quit, and we're short 51 hours a week in the assessor's office. While it's a struggle to hire qualified and skilled municipal employees generally, this level of vacancy isn't happening to this extent everywhere. It's happening here. I have fielded calls from many board members complaining about response times and processes, volunteers unwilling to rustle feathers and make public complaints, but frustrated all the same. Between 20 and 30 town employees have called me or met with me in the last 2 years alone, unsolicited, with complaints. If you live on or near water and had an action before the Conservation Commission in the last few years to build a deck or make some home repairs or improvements, you know that it has taken too long to get the paperwork you need due to critical vacancies. Additionally, over the last year, some staff have showed up to work for weeks at a time without having a working computer. Phone systems have been down too frequently, and we may very well be on the cusp of not being able to pick up trash around town. From my lens, it's not great being an employee of the town of Lunenburg. Our employees love their jobs. They are called to serve. But many don't feel valued. Many don't feel seen. And the opportunity to contribute to policy creation and direction just doesn't exist. We lack a collective vision and collective mission. In effect, we have become the abusers in this abusive relationship. And the only time that we ever really interact with employees outside of scheduled updates on finances is when we negotiate union contracts. And even then, no member of this board sits at the negotiating table. We send the town manager and our lawyer. I believe that every contract we signed during my tenure was after the previous one expired. Our employees want to provide residents and businesses with the best service. They really, really care. And so we need to do right by them. Everyone under 45 has been taught in a collaborative learning environment, less rows and columns and more small groups. The educational model for the last 4 decades has increasingly incorporated a lot of project-based learning and team activities that engages learners across disciplines. Our schools teach citizenship, encouraging everyone to make the changes they want to see in this world. My focus, rather exclusively for the remainder of my term, will be on being a better employer. Change starts at the top, and it must start with this board. We need to implement those best practices that foster a collaborative work environment. And that includes mandating climate surveys that routinely check the pulse of our workforce and make necessary improvements. At my insistence for 3 years, one was done a few years ago, but the results were not shared, and the summary we received indicated that only 25% of employees had confidence in the management of the town. We need to implement an after-action review process in which we include critical feedback from everyone involved in executing so that we are positioned for constant improvement. We need to mandate a formal employee recognition program. We need to require the town manager to implement the annual performance reviews that the charter dictates and create department and individual goals. We need to close the gap between policy creation and execution and engage our staff directly before implementing policies that impact them. I urge us to create a ratification process that mandates collaboration by key stakeholders during the hiring process, and that at least allows us to have insight into the process. For the last 5 years, I have ratified hiring decisions without any insight into job descriptions, who applied, selection criteria, onboarding processes, or exit interviews. We receive a bio blurb, usually within the hour before the meeting. We don't need to get into the weeds, but we need to provide more meaningful oversight as the chief executive body and foster a structure in which we actually have vision and mission statements and work to support it. I acknowledge fully that these thoughts have been restated and relayed in many forms and in many ways privately for many years with increasing frustration. We need to be a local government in which people can offer the gifts and talents that God gave them and the gifts and talents they have mastered. We need to maximize individual abilities for the benefit of us all. We are not that government today, but we can get there. Additionally, I recognize that the decision by the majority of this board to approve a public communication policy was hasty and in bad form. I proposed the policy and supported it. From time to time, members of this board are exposed to information that is confidential or that, if publicly stated, could compromise the town. That policy was birthed as a response to confidential information. It was uncomfortable, but it achieved its desired result, enforcing a long enough delay for awareness of a specific liability to be understood and mitigated. As such, I asked the chair to add it to tonight's agenda so that the policy can be repealed, and I will vote to repeal it. And that is it.
I have a statement or a comment. I'd like to address a few matters that have been raised in recent meetings. First, I missed the last meeting due to a medical issue. While I'm not obligated to share this information, I think it's important for the public to remember that we're all human, and sometimes things arise that may prevent us from attending meetings. My absence was not related to childcare. My children, who are age 20 and 2 in middle school, they're well supported by my friends and family, allowing me the flexibility to serve on this board. Mentioning my children during the interim town manager interviews was relevant, as I have children in the school system, providing a beneficial perspective to this board. Regarding the meeting minutes and the use of AI in their preparation, our minutes are prepared by the executive assistant to the town manager and sent to us for approval. I was unaware of the AI involvement, and I do fully support Annie, our EA, in her diligent work. Every new role comes with a learning curve. I'm committed to learning and being a productive member of this board. Concerning the policy that we passed a few weeks ago, I understand the public's concerns. Having worked in the police department, I recognize the importance of policies and protocols. After reviewing board policies, I believe the recent vote was invalid due to existing policy violations. We should rescind, review, and discuss this policy before taking another vote. Stepping onto this board as a new member has been challenging, especially with the evident divide. I ran for the board because as a staff member, I was concerned about many issues in town. I'm committed to continuing to learn, being a voice for our staff, and voting based on my independent views. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any additional comments from the board this evening?
Two. First, I want to recognize the first meeting of our interim town manager, Carter Terenzini, and I want to welcome him to the board. That was quite a welcoming already. You showed really interviewed well, and your references were very glowing, and I welcome you aboard in a very important time in the town's history or period. And I know, although it is a temporary position, it is a critical position as we transition. And having served as interim town manager in many other places, you know the importance of that transition. So I welcome you aboard, and I offer you any assistance and help you may require, while making sure to stay out of your way most of the time to do your job, especially since it's going to take a while for you to get the lay of the land, as it were. So welcome. And the second one is a lot less lighthearted, which is that last night was the 4th of 5 town band concerts, one more next Monday. Again, if you haven't come before, they're at 7 o'clock on Monday in front of the TC Passios School. And it's really a great bit of Americana, and it's really a lot of fun, and it's a really wonderful community event, of which there are unfortunately fewer and fewer community-style events. So I encourage people to come. Thank you.
Do we have any public comments this evening from the public? Ms. Lizio.
Rhonda Lucia, 181 Reservoir Road. This is related to the first topic that was discussed in board comments, but I do find it funny that the board comment that was just made sounded an awful lot like someone who was seeking a human resource position instead of a position on the select board. My comment is, I think we are fooling ourselves if we think spending $15,000 on a firm to fill the town manager position will make any difference. We cannot buy enough lipstick to make this position attractive. Taking corrective action is the best and first step toward the position becoming more attractive. There was a specific process in place for the select board to decide whether or not to renew the town manager's contract. The proper channel would have been to conduct the town manager's annual performance evaluation, which should not have been ignored. The results of the evaluation were to be reported in an open meeting. Ignoring the evaluation absolved the former chair from having to provide one single objective reason for not wanting to renew the town manager's contract. The town manager had the right to expect objective standards would be the only standards applied in determining her fate. Fellow members had the right to expect to have equal input into determining the town manager's fate. And the public had the right to expect decisions regarding the most powerful position in the charter would be evaluated according to objective standards and discussed in an open meeting. The current vice chair took independent action to circumvent the entire process. I think one could reasonably conclude ignoring the town manager's evaluation and discussing these matters in private was intentional. He was responsible for listing agenda items for the select board at the time when the evaluation should have occurred. And now we all know he did not want to renew the contract itself. The corrective action we need is for the vice chair to be removed from this board. The problem on this board is not disagreement. It's people operating outside the rules. That's the way I see it. I think discussion, debate, disagreement, these things are all, they bring it to a higher level if done correctly. And, you know, going back to the comment at the beginning of the meeting, you're allowed to criticize people, you just have to do it in a way that's not personal, using objective standards. It's not that difficult. I think it's what I'm doing right now. So I think he should be removed from the board. I think we should be demanding his resignation or pursuing a recall election. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lizio.
You have a comment, Mr. Jeffries? I didn't want to interrupt. Hi, everybody. John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. I live there with Jean Marie Price. Unfortunately, Mr. Nuzzola isn't here, so I'm going to read my statement as though he is here.
I'm sure he'll watch the meeting.
I'm sure he will. I'm sure he will. So I just want to make sure that this is to address to every individual here of the board and when Mr. Nuzzola isn't here. Mr. Vice Chair, I may need an extra minute and a half or so to be able to complete what I have to say, please. I'll begin with you, Mr. Chair, who is not here, Mr. Nuzzola. In October 2022, Mr. Nuzzola said that he volunteered and, quote, fell in love with this little town. How sweet. So tired of hearing this as a qualifier. It seems to be that everybody that you appoint to a board says, I love Lunenburg, that's why I want to do all these wonderful things. Well, let me tell you something. As a mother, Miss Moore, okay, loving your children alone does not make them successful, does it? So therefore, loving Lunenburg does not make Lunenburg successful, does it? And that should never be a qualifier. But many boards have passed, including your cemetery commission and other boards and employees. I love this, I love that. Take that out of your speech. Love is not the answer. I'm tired of hearing it. Mr. Nuzzola was nominated in 2023. Moved here in 2022. He was nominated at caucus and subsequently elected. He's a software engineer, an officer in the National Guard. How that happened, I wonder. I won't ask if you don't tell. We are not fit, by any measure, to be a lone member of this select board. Nobody is fit to be a lone member. This is a board. A recall is definitely in line and needed in play, which I heard just recently here as well as in conversation that this has occurred or is in the process of recalling a number of different members here. Mr. Jeffries, I want to thank you very much for your phone call on last Wednesday, not last Wednesday, the Wednesday prior, to discuss my comments made at that meeting that I had made. This should have been the chairperson, Mr. Jeffries, not you. That speaks for itself. On that note, since policy is a guideline, here's your policy. This is your policy. It's very difficult to tear because there's so much stuff in it. Don't you ever call out me or any other citizen in this town about your policy and how this is the town's policy, since your policy can be adjusted and managed and maintained at any point in time by your discretion. You are a disgrace, all of you, who voted for 2.13. I promise you, tell me this is policy and we will be at war. Voting for 2.13 was to prevent the town manager from releasing a press release that could possibly land the town on the hook for a possible lawsuit or other issues and circumstances. We don't know the facts of those, as you explained, Mr. Jeffries. We don't know the facts because there are privy conversations that nobody has a right to know because those are protected between employee and employer, which is rightfully so. However, okay, we also as citizens call that a whistleblower, and you prevented a whistleblower from speaking. You attempted to circumvent the process, and you, Mr. Jeffries, Miss Amanda Moore, and Mr. Nizzolo should be recalled. Ms. Moore, even though I agree with your desire to make Lunenburg a better place for its employees, your vote on this policy clearly shows the abuses you suffered in town at the hands of this town administration as an employee. I am empathetic to that and understand exactly what that means to be oppressed in what you want to do for your good work that you try to provide to this town. However, you are a liar, which you corrected tonight. You corrected that tonight when you recanted your vote for 2.13. I had to adjust my statement. Nothing is stopping you, though, in the future from ever proposing an amendment that you would have to retract as you did tonight, okay? You can stand for what you believe in, for why you got elected. You support employees in this town, then you should have done so with refusing 2.13. Ms. Emke, Dr. Emke, if I may, thank you for your balanced
Wrap up
deduction
these
with all
comments
matters.
Shortly.
I will. I'm concluding. Mr. Alonso, I reviewed years of minutes with you on this board. Sometimes you went with the good old boys club over the years, and sometimes you're not, but you've always come around in full circle, and I believe people change, and I believe that adjustments happen, and I appreciate that. That you have been a balance, you've provided wisdom and knowledge to this town, and anyone, can see the red and white difference, okay, and come to those conclusions. Now, let's talk about me. I moved here in 2020, when my father-in-law died, with his daughter, Jean Marie Price. I never spoke a word until I first put my time in as a resident here. My background, people whisper in the quiet halls of government, right, Mr. Jeffries? But the background is this. I came from a blue-collar home. I was a member of a Civil Air Patrol, okay? I was a Life Scout, which I connect with a lot of people in that regard. I was a police explorer. I was accepted in the Marine Corps. However, obviously something happened, and I ended up on a different path, okay? I was an OCS candidate, Mr. Jeffries. However, just because that occurred, why do I love anything except for America in its process, in this process, okay? I support the law, the Constitution, not some candidate for office. I will say that this is hard, and I am not worried about reputation, okay? I speak from my heart. I also speak that the truth is what we need to hear from this board about the realities of what's going on in town. We are in financial disrepair. The select board, as a recall, is definitely in measure,
Mr.
but it
Bowen.
needs to be appropriately applied, and I think you'll all agree, okay?
Mr.
Not
Bowen.
everybody agrees to that.
Mr. Bowen, I want to thank you for your time. You asked for an additional minute or two. You had an
I
additional
did.
3.
May I conclude just real quickly?
I think we have some additional opportunity toward the end of the meeting for you to make additional.
Then I'd like to say that your speech today, your speech that you gave today was political speech and not free speech. Because as a member of the government, you have no speech. You are a political individual speaking on behalf of the government when you speak. And therefore, the speaking that comes from this board, including any other member here, is a political speech on behalf of the government, not on behalf of the people, regardless of what it is that you say.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Burton.
Hi, George Burden, 39 Cortlandt Circle. I just wanted to, make some comments. You've known I've been down here multiple times, very frustrated with the town. Seems like a lot of people are. Some of the comments I've heard about Amanda, I don't agree with, honestly, Mr. Bowen. Talking about a woman with 3 children, I don't think that's very appropriate. I think you guys try to do a good job. There's probably some of you that have been manipulating the others. I want to, kind of apologize and condemn Mr. Alonso for stepping up last week and really, kind of giving your thoughts about the problems here. And it's probably a hard thing to do to another select board member. I feel the same thing. Everybody here tonight is pointing at Mr. Jeffries. I have a big problem with the individual. He's lied to me. He's told me multiple things. He's switched on me. This guy is a problem. He's lost his soul, and it needs to stop. He's caused a lot of problems for me and my family, emotionally, physically, and financially. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and I just wanted to kind of say to all of you, Mr. Alonso, it was great to hear you step up last week, and I listened to it after I left. It was very good to hear that. But we know there's a lot of problems here with Mr. Jeffries You lost your soul. You really did. And like one of the residents said last week, your 3 minutes are up. They really are. You should step down. You really should step down before you cause a real problem in this town. We moved here 20 years ago. The first 10 years were great for us. When we brought up a situation that we brought to the town manager 3 years ago, our problems got much worse, okay? You were involved, Mr. Jeffries, and we pretty much 100% have a feeling of that. You turned 180 degrees on us. A lawyer that you've told my trustees and the homeowners association that are abusing us, that have charged us and extorted us $20,000, have gone to attorneys that you told me were represented by your firm. That lawyer then calls you and tells you that you're lying against me. You make up some little comments about that. That guy told me and my wife we will put our hands on my mother's grave and tell you he told us that he represents your firm. You told me that's a defamation. There's no defamation. If you're trying to disassociate yourself with somebody, that's telling me you got a big problem, because that alone is not defamation on its own. It's not defamation trying to associate you with someone. If there's a problem, if that person did something, and maybe you're trying to disassociate yourself with that individual, and that's where that's going. But a couple other things I just wanted to mention. A town resident here last week said, and I think this is really something you guys got to think of. Vote for the people from your heart, right? I think that's a very good thing that individual said. Another comment made by one of the staff, our water commission, a couple months ago, or maybe a month ago, when it was, it's kind of a sad story. I don't know the whole background of it, but I came into a meeting here and I see the guy has to fight for a budget for a future water, right? We're sitting here and he says we need to get our sense of our community back. I think we're all saying the same thing here. We need a little town community. We moved here 20 years ago because of the small community. We wanted to move from a city and get out of the city and raise 3 daughters that we could have a stable home for, have them come back from Christmases when they're in college. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen for us because we can't stand this town anymore, okay? When my last child is out of school, we'll probably move. It's disgusting what's happened to us. It's hideous, and we're going to put an end to it. And I apologize for any of you that maybe have taken a manipulation from this individual. And I'm going to leave it at that, and I think you all know that what the residents are saying are completely true and honest, and thank you for stepping up. And I know it was a very hard thing for you to say and probably do. But Amanda, again, hang in there. I think some things that are being said about you, children, don't worry about that. You just hang in there. I've gone through it. I've been lied about, so forth. You'll be fine. And just hang in there, because I think you'll do very good for the town, and I think we need some younger folks and that grow up here and really taking care of the town. And I respect that, and I thank you for stepping up myself, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burden. Do we have any other public comments? Paula?
Paula Bertram, 312 Townsend Harbor Road. I served on this board for 12 years. I worked with Mr. Alonso, and I value those years. It's a tough job, and I want to thank each and every one of you for doing it. I want to welcome the interim town manager. Welcome to Lunenburg. Unfortunately, this is probably not the best venue this evening, but I did see your interview, and I believe you're going to do a good job, and thank you for your efforts. I'm appalled at some of the statements that I've heard tonight. People don't understand what's involved in this position. It's not simply sitting at a table and making decisions. It's doing the research. It's all of the additional meetings. It's all of the extra time. It's easy for someone to sit back and say what someone should or should not say. Put yourself in that position. If you feel that strongly and you can verbally attack individuals who are volunteering their time, put your money where your mouth is. Some of the comments that have been made tonight are completely inappropriate. They are slanderous at a minimum, and people should be ashamed of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Christos Lakadias, 49 Maple Parkway, speaking as president of the local 5369 of Lunenburg Professional Firefighters. So I'm here to comment tonight on the topic of employee appreciation that you discussed at your last meeting. While I don't disagree with this concept, it needs to be done the right way. The fact of the matter is, employee morale is at an all-time low in this town, especially at the fire department. In a 9-member full-time roster, Myself and my membership have been ordered to cover unfilled shifts 30 times this year, equaling 374 hours. This is in addition to the over 1,000 hours of overtime that the nine of us have willingly worked. This is not only outrageous, it's downright unsafe. We're burnt out. The biggest contributing factor to the amount of forced shifts is our awful schedule. Now, this should not come as a shock to anybody. This is brought up every contract cycle negotiations, and the fire chief brings it up every year during his budget presentation when he explains why we are unable to recruit experienced people. The town has done nothing to fix this, and now we're paying the price, causing each of us to reach our breaking point with no end in sight. If you really think that showing up with coffee and donuts is magically going to fix the issues without discussing them, then this board is completely out of touch with reality. That solution is about as useful as the employee newsletter. If you're serious about fixing morale and showing appreciation to the town employees, then we'll sit down with you and have a cup of coffee while we discuss the issues and develop solutions. But if you're not willing to have the difficult conversations and commit to fixing the issues, then I personally believe that you should focus your attention elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Do we have any other public comments from the public this evening? All right, hearing none. And I will note that Mr. Nuzzolo, who's not here, prefers for me not to enforce time limits on public comments, as I previously did as chair. And so we had a little bit lengthier of a time there. I'm going to go ahead and skip communications from other boards and, that's why you're here. All right, I was going to push it back to the appointments. Let's go ahead then to communications from other boards.
Paula Bertram, and I'm here as a sewer business manager for the town of Lunenburg. Last week, I had the opportunity to work with Randy Mercier, who's the individual contracted to address the munis issues we've been experiencing. Mr. Mercier is trying to determine if some of the problems we're experiencing are environment-related. He would like to know who configured the server, was it done in-house or by Munis or /Tyler. Mr. Mercier has never seen some of the difficulties we're experiencing in any other community. For instance, when doing a refresh on training last week, the CPU for the server was 100% at 100%, and Munis became inoperable for all departments for many hours. Refreshing training is a routine practice. Basically, you're taking the backup from the previous evening and putting that data into training. It should not affect production, and it should certainly not peg the CPU at 100%. Since June 4th, the utility billing account inquiry has not worked. The absence of this functionality greatly increases the time it takes to perform routine functions. This problem occurs across the entire network. In addition to investigating the server configuration, Mr. Mercier strongly recommends that the town invest in an on-prem service contract. The first quarter sewer bills were scheduled to go out on August 2nd. After completing the bill run and training, Mr. Mercier and I discovered that many of the bills were once again wrong. We were able to determine that data is pulling from the wrong field, and a ticket has been opened with Tyler support. And the last update that I got today was that they are working on it. When I first took the position of business manager, I streamlined the billing process, which used to take 2 weeks to 1 to 2 days. Since the implementation of the new Munis upgrade almost a year ago, not one bill run has been correct, not one. Endless hours have been spent manually correcting bills and trying to troubleshoot with Tyler support. Billing now consumes the majority of my working hours at the expense of other work. Until the bills are corrected by Munis, I'm not going to be putting labels on 300 bills again. The first quarter bills will not be sent. As you know, as an enterprise account, the sewer department is entirely reliant on user charges for revenue. This situation is absolutely unacceptable and must be resolved. Immediate action needs to be taken.
I assume there'll be an opportunity to talk about ARPA funds later on in the agenda. Is that correct? Okay, then I won't take the extra time now to do that. But As you can see, nothing's changed, except we're paying a consultant who's telling us what we pretty much already knew. Now, one of the first questions that Selectman Moore asked when we presented was, do we know what the real problem is? And the answer at the time was, it's Munis. Well, apparently we still don't know what the real problem is. Do we have a server issue? The question was asked last Thursday. We still don't have an answer. So it's not going away. It's getting worse. And I'm at a loss as to what to do. So once again, where do we go? What do we do? So.
Thank you.
We have any other communications from other boards? I'm aware of one. Communication came in from the Agricultural Commission, and what they're looking to do, and this is for the board, what they're looking to do is have a community event on public property, and as per the special event policy that we created, we specifically identified that a special event is an event that is a private individual or private party hosting event on public property, or an event by a private individual on private property. And we specifically that's open to the general public. And we specifically did not include elected boards. But the question has come from what is the process for an elected or appointed board to have a town event? And so that's the question from the Agricultural Commission. If any member has any thoughts, it seems to read that the town manager is responsible for the use of town property, and that could be decided by the town manager. But I wanted, the Agricultural Commission has requested kind of guidance in this area, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page in terms of can a board create a public event with the town manager and with this board, or is there another process that's expected of them?
Mr. Vice Chair, I would say, from my mind, that it's an appointed commission that represents the municipality, so it is a town entity. So it definitely is it falls under town sanctioning its own event. So as long as, I'd like to know what the event is, of course, but, I mean, it's not a private entity, the Agricultural Commission, it's a town entity. So therefore, it's the town asking to do some event, of which I'm unaware, on a town-owned piece of property, which should be fine. I don't know that you need a special event permit, but I'll withhold that until I know what the event is.
Yep. All right. That is also, Mr. Alonso, my read, they're looking to have basically like a fair, open to the public. They might have a vendor. They're looking to see if there's vendors who would be willing to participate. But the first step is just identifying for them how to do a town event. So I concur. I don't know if anyone disagrees that the correct process is for them to reach out to the town manager with their proposed dates and verify that it's good to go, and then come before us for anything that actually affects. Anything within that. If they want to sell alcohol, they'll have to get someone with it, to come for that and all the other good stuff.
Mr. Vice Chair?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the things that are in that policy are stuff that we would want, and they would have to ask anyway, but instead of it being approved.
Yep, it's usually, so yeah. And I think that the way I read it, it was at that first sentence, private party.
Right, no, I agree with you there, but I mean, a lot of the point of getting this is just setting it all up. So if they're looking for the process, it wouldn't be bad for them to review it, even if it's not following the policy and just working with the town manager, because those questions are still there.
Yep. All right, I will give that feedback. Okay. All right. So, going to our appointments. I want to thank all of our appointments for staying here a little bit later. So we have a 7:15 continuation of public hearing, a notice of intent to convert and sell from Chapter 61B, Lot 1 and 3, Kilburn Street. Vote on first right of refusal, including the exercise the first right of refusal, waive the first right of refusal, or assign the first right of refusal. The time is 7:40, and I will open the public hearing. Before you make a presentation, council, I will go to the board. So where we left off on this, as I recall, and I need to pull up the drive, where we left off on this was that we were waiting for additional information to come in. We received that additional information as it related to, I think it was the Open Space Committee. But I'll go to the board for any, this should be pretty straightforward, council. So I'll go to the board first for any questions, comments the board may have on this.
I do have one. We were waiting for a report out of the Open Space Committee, which they have now provided us, I think, last week. And one of the things they've requested, and I think we asked this, although, except for the 2 words "in writing," we did not ask, but they are asking the Open Space Committee that the town clarify in writing with the landowner that they intend to keep the remainder of the land enrolled, one of the largest parcel, that it will remain in 61B.
Yes, so we're looking to release 2 lots.
Yep.
I do have a copy, I do have a plan here. So there's 2 lots, Lot 1 and Lot 3, and there's a remaining land of about 81 acres, and that is to remain in Chapter 61.
So would you be able to provide in writing that that will be done?
Yes, I can provide a copy of the plan if the board would like that as well.
Yeah, I think we have the plan, but I just want in writing that, and it doesn't, I'm willing to vote on it before we get that, as a gentleman's agreement that you will provide that.
Mr. Alonso?
Yes.
For clarification, if they're not requesting for this land to be taken out of chapter, it remains in chapter, are you looking for some kind of guarantee that they're looking to keep it in chapter?
I'm just reading from the Open Space Committee report, which says, and I will read it at verbatim, the first sentence, it says, "The Open Space Committee recommends that the town clarify in writing with the landowner that they intend to keep the remainder land enrolled in Chapter 61B."
Yes, so we're only looking for release of Lot 1 and 3, and so the remaining land will remain in Chapter 61B.
So they have not indicated, Mr. Vice Chair, any, they're not looking for in perpetuity or whatever, they just want to know that for the foreseeable future, meaning, now till, that 3 days after we've already waived that one anyway, so. It's just a gentleman's, like I said, agreement.
Yes, so my client isn't looking to release, they're only looking for Lot 1 and Lot 3.
Other than that, I think they have provided us with they promoted by a vote of 5-0 with 2 vacant, well, 1 member was absent and they have a vacancy, to recommend waiving the right of first refusal on the lots. I am willing to proceed with that when and if it is time for a motion.
And so, council, as I just heard you, you do not object to following this meeting, providing us in writing a statement that indicates that the owner has no intention on removing the remaining property out of 61B?
At this time, they have no intention to. Yes, I can provide you in writing, and I can email it to the board, wherever you would like me to send it.
Perfect. If you can provide that to the town manager, Carter, or Annie, that'd be excellent. All right. Any other questions related to this? All right. Is there a motion?
I move that the board vote to waive the right of first refusal on Lot 1 and Lot 3 on the, I don't have the address here, Lot 1 and 3 of Kilburn Street. I don't have the address.
Is it 20 Kilburn?
Yes, the original number was 20 Kilburn.
Okay, of 20 Kilburn.
Second. Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. All right, the motion passes unanimously from all members present. So I know that your client has been waiting patiently for us to go through our process, and we did identify as well that, Open Space Committee is not a statutory requirement, but it is a requirement within the town of Lunenburg. We are working on workflow improvements, so that way, as we go in the future and any requests like this, that it will make sure that it hits all the right committees at the same time, so that way we don't have these kind of delays where we recognize, a month or two into the process that a critical committee like Open Space wasn't contacted.
Thank you,
All right.
Mr. Jeffries.
Mr. Vice Chair, to the applicant's counsel, as somebody in the law, I know you know full well the delays that happen, certainly not of intent sometimes, but just out of process, so I appreciate you and your client being patient while we fulfilled our process, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alonso.
All right, thank you. Next, we have amendment to Class 2 motor vehicle license for Chapter Lane Motors. So while they are coming forward, if they choose to, so this request from Chapter Lane, as we recall, it is about language in their license. So during their previous meeting with us, they indicated in the fall, when they received the license, in the course of conversation, they indicated that they were not looking to retail vehicles, but were looking to wholesale in some form. That comment was logged as being in passing. And the RMV also indicates that they're looking for language on the license that says wholesale and brokerage or wholesale only. That then triggered us to identify what was needed to correct this. And on the advice of counsel, we needed to go through the process we went through initially to issue the license. So the request today is to modify the Class 2 motor vehicle license for Chapter Lane Motors to specifically indicate wholesale and brokering only. And I will pause for any of the chapter lanes if I have that incorrectly. Wholesale and brokering only. Yes, please.
Mike Chapdelaine, 208 Leominster Road.
And Mark Chapdelaine, 102 Fairview Road.
You guys related?
I've known him all my life.
Yes, right.
Yes, the RMV has requested that we change our Class 2 license to read wholesale and brokering only.
All right.
And just as a correction, Michael Ray, it's Chapdelaine Truck Center.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure.
What did I say?
Chapdelaine Motors. I just want to make sure it's correct on
Okay.
That way on their license.
on the license.
Do you have the license by chance with you?
I do.
Because I don't in front of me, and one of the things I was hoping that we were going to have, but because of the change in the town managership, we didn't. I want to know, I want to make sure that we don't have to do this again.
That's right.
I want to know
You wanna
what
make
the
sure
change exactly you want added and modified. So if you have it on that.
Annie has that.
Okay, well, Andy did not provide that.
No, we have it right here.
We
have
do?
Well,
Oh,
we have a letter from town council.
this
I
is
brought
not-
copies of our
is not it.
existing
I am in the folder.
license.
All I see is this.
Yeah, a letter from town council, that's it.
Yeah, but it doesn't,
I know, I'm saying we don't have it.
right.
We don't have what you're asking for.
Right.
When I'm going through the documents now, the first license that we have prepared for tonight is not the correct business.
It's referred to as Chapdelaine
Truck Center.
Incorporated.
Is that still
That's
accurate?
correct,
So
right.
I have a copy of the previous one, so I'm going to make sure it's marked up. So, and we'll have to, unfortunately, we don't have the correct form tonight, so we're going to have to sign it probably tomorrow.
That's fine.
So as it reads, it says Class 2 auto dealer license in accordance with the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 140, Section 58 with amendments, Chapdelaine Truck Center, Inc., located at 199 Massachusetts Avenue, is hereby issued a Class 2 auto dealer license whose principal business is the buying or selling of secondhand motor vehicles, purchases, and then she's crossed out secondhand motor vehicles for resale and transactions. The business shall obtain a bond in the amount of $25,000 or equivalent or proof of financial responsibility. And so what you're looking for is language that says secondhand motor vehicles for resale and wholesale and brokering only.
Correct, and we
All right.
want to drop the word displays,
Okay.
where it says secondhand motor vehicles purchases and displays. We want to drop that word displays, because when we first approached the town,
Yep, we crossed off it and displays.
right,
All right.
Once you have that
resale-
marked
for-
up, Mr.
for
Vice Chair, if you
resale
could
in-
pass that down so
I
we
will.
can all see it,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
for resale in wholesale and brokering transactions.
Doesn't need to be a comma there.
So you want the word transactions? All right.
Correct.
I accidentally crossed off transactions, so I'm adding it back in. All right.
I apologize, because I thought this wording was already worked out,
So
and
did
this
I.
was just going to be,
Well, it was. I brought Annie a copy of our current license.
right?
Which
With
is-
the strikes and
Correct.
corrections and.
Yep, and that's what we have in front of
Okay.
us, and displays is crossed off, in retail's crossed off, and then you've added in the language wholesale and brokering transactions.
Yes,
Okay, and brokering is what I added in today.
okay.
Okay.
And does the word only
I'm
have
gonna
to
Does it
pick-
have to say the word
Does the
only?
word only have to be in it? I think only has to be in it, too.
Okay.
Wholesale and brokering only,
Transact,
Wholesale and brokering transactions only?
correct.
thank you. So on this one, I think that as this motion is made, I think we need to offer a little bit of leeway to Annie as she works with the chapter lanes to ensure that the language that we're intending to say today matches. So that way, if there's a minor correction that needs to be made, that she has the flexibility to make it, I don't think,
appreciate that.
Yep,
I didn't agree that you guys had to come back. I thought it was pretty clear the first time, but,
Neither did we.
yeah, but again, it was apparently in passing.
For clarity and for the record, I would like to read this in its entirety with the additions and make sure you agree. So
okay.
it's recorded
Tom, there's
forever.
some words cut off at the edge of the page that we can't see on that copy,
Okay,
as you read
Do you
it.
have a copy saying exactly what you want?
I don't.
Annie has it.
Annie has it.
All right, I'll read well, we're not changing the second sentence, so we're only changing the first sentence. So, it
Correct.
says, whose principal business is the buying or selling of secondhand motor vehicles, purchases secondhand motor vehicles for resale in wholesale and brokering transactions only. And then it goes on to the second
Correct.
sentence. Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Just want to make sure we get it right once, because it's been
Appreciate
a real inconvenience for you guys, and it has not been on our end. Believe me, we wish we could have done it quicker, so.
We appreciate you getting us on the agenda
Yeah.
that quick.
And I did share, I didn't speak with you, Mark, but I spoke with Mike, that, it was the advice of town council that wanted to point out two important things. That number one, that he doesn't understand, the RMV has the ability, just like the alcohol regulation committee does for liquor licenses, they have the ability to tell you and restrict your own licenses so he didn't understand why they were asking us to change it, and if we needed to change it, it had to be in an open meeting. We couldn't just strike it out clerically and hand you a new license. That would alter the current license,
Right.
and that was not allowed. So
Yeah.
I just want, you guys already know, I want the public to know that, and listen, we know you guys have been great businesses in this town well before I even moved to town 26 years ago. It's not because we want to hassle,
5 years.
right, there you go. So it's not because we want to hassle local businesses, we clearly do not.
No.
Yes.
The hours of
Thank you.
operation are also marked out, the business hours are crossed off on this copy? I
I'm
don't know.
sorry.
The business hours were changed
Yes, I forgot about that.
Monday to Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m.?
7:30 to noon, and then 1 to 3.
Do you want to mark?
Okay.
I kind of forgot about that. I think
But-
that's
but the
a
copy-
month.
Monday to Thursday,
Yeah, but-
7:30 to noon,
Like you say, once-
and 1 to 3?
1 to 3, yeah.
Don't leave an I undotted.
Yes, we want to, okay, so if it's okay with the board, when it comes time, I'll read the motion as one thing.
If I may, though, I mean,
Yep.
would it be better just to keep 7:30 to 3? I mean, if you're
Yeah,
running late on a
exactly.
lunch break, you know what I mean? Like, do you really want to open that door?
Mike's there at 7, I'm usually there until 4 or after.
But they
Yeah.
need some
But-
sort of
but
hours.
they need-
Yes, but why don't we
It's
just
a
go
day
7:30, why don't we just go 7:30 to 3 and forget about the gap
Yeah.
from 12 to 1? That seems a little superfluous.
Doesn't
We
mean you
have to
have
go
to be
out for
open,
lunch.
it's just.
Well, you're allowed to go out for
Have to
lunch.
be open, but.
I don't think on your hours of operation, you have to tell people you have to have
You
lunch.
can reduce your hours, right? You
Right.
can't have
This would
more
just allow you
hours.
to stay open during that time frame if you wanted to. You don't
Yeah.
have to.
Yeah. You
But the
can-
day
But they are
changed as well.
expanding it to 7:30.
The days change.
The day was previously Monday
Yeah,
to Friday,
I'll make
now
the
it's Monday to
changes.
Thursday, is that
We
right?
take Friday off now.
Okay, just want to make sure that's right.
Man, the life, you two.
Semi-retirement.
All right, so I'm going to change it to 7:30 a.m. to 3
So
p.m.
a couple hours a day, each one of
Oh,
you.
we're both there most every Friday and Saturday.
All right.
All right, Mr. Alonso, do you want to make the motion?
I will. I move that we amend or modify the existing Class 2 auto dealer license issued to Chapter Lane Truck Center, Inc., located at 199 Massachusetts Avenue, as follows. Sentence 1, after the Class 2 auto dealer license heading, quote, "whose principal business is the buying or selling of secondhand motor vehicles, purchases secondhand motor vehicles for resale in wholesale and brokering transactions only." The second sentence remains the same. And then the change of the business hours, the current hours will be stricken and replaced with Monday to Thursday, 7:30 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m.
Correct.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All right, any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
Piece of
Motion
cake.
passes. And then verbally, we've also mentioned that if somehow there's any kind of rework here, or something minor, I thought we were understood, and it wasn't in the motion, but that a minor modification could be permitted without coming back before us? Or were we not in agreement on that?
Well, except for punctuation. I mean, I don't think, that's why we should have had it in advance, but,
Yeah.
yeah, if there's a misspelling or something, yeah, I mean, I don't, but they can't, substantively change it, right?
Yeah, yeah. But we're not going to cross it out and put retail in there. But if a period needs to move, then a period can move without coming back before us.
Right.
All right, thank
All right.
you.
Thank you.
Good luck then.
All right. All right. Okay, we have completed our appointments, and now we are on, we don't have any interviews, reappointments, but we do have, we were made aware of a resignation, but that will come up in the town manager report, which is now. So, to the interim town manager.
Good evening. My name's Carter Terenzini. I'm the interim town manager and will be with you 5 to 6 months as you work your way towards your next manager. With regret this evening, I am announcing that I've received the retirement notice from Chief of Police Thomas Gamble. Having served the town for well more than 20 years, he's been in law enforcement well over 30 years, with his last 4 years as chief, he will be leaving us as of October 18, 2024. I hope all will join me in thanking him for his service to the community and wishing him well. And if you're a golfer, I expect you'll see him on the links a bit more.
Probably have to go to South Carolina, though.
I know. Go to Hilton Head.
I will be taking counsel from the select board members, the chief of police, and other appropriate parties over the coming weeks as the best way to proceed. And we can talk more about that one-on-one over the next couple of weeks. Certainly, I did tell him I hardly got to know him, With respect to the board, committee, and commission vacancies, we unfortunately have 2 more resignations. I'd like to recognize John Reynolds and Steve Du Bois, I hope I'm saying that correctly, for their service on the Sewer Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals respectively. Both have resigned this week. Volunteers on our many boards, such as these, are the lifeblood of this organization. They're a way to learn about and influence how we operate and the policies and projects that we develop and pursue. The following is a list of current vacancies on some of our boards and commissions. They're the Agricultural Commission, the Architectural Preservation District Commission, our Board of Health, Capital Planning Committee, and they are just beginning their cycle for fiscal '26.
If I may, Mr. Terenzini,
Please.
that there are no vacancies on the capital plan. We just filled, the town moderator filled the last vacancy at our meeting on Wednesday.
My
So that was-
apologies. But I am glad he was able to do that.
Yes.
As you enter the work time of the year. Thank you. Conservation Commission, Cultural Council, Green Communities Committee, Historical Commission, Open Spaces Committee, Personnel Committee, Sewer Commission, and Zoning Board of Appeals. Now, if you're in the sewer district and interested in what's going on there, particularly with the kinds of issues that Ms. Bertram, I hope I got that last name correct, is speaking of, let me just say that there's just no better way to learn town government, to ask the questions, and to influence how things are. And many people who are at this table have started in these commissions and boards. Interested persons can find the volunteer application on the town website, complete the form, and send it to the Select Board office. And for the board's edification, I'm going to be looking to change that to a fully clickable form that can be filled out online and transmitted directly, no printing and filling the note. If you out there have any questions about these particular opportunities, or you're not quite sure where your talents and interests might lie, send us an email. We'll set up time to talk with you, get you connected with the right person, and help you identify how you can best utilize those talents and interests on behalf of the town. We do have, I think, some positive news, hopefully, on the employment opportunities. We are remaining in accepting network administrator and desk clerk at the public safety position. Those are both full-time, 40 hours a week. We do have, I'm pleased to report, job offers out for the seasonal cemetery labor and the 2 positions in the assessing office. We're getting them through the final hoops of background and Corey and such. And with a little luck, we hope to have them before you Monday night. The Conservation Administrative Assistant and the Land Use Director interviews are being conducted this week. Some of them were today, there's some tomorrow, and then some on Thursday. With respect to staffing updates, I do note that entering town service at this time is not necessarily the best thing in terms of retaining. And Ms. Bertram has done yeoman's work in trying to keep things going, but in consultation with the Department of Public Works Director, we're pulling the position of assistant to the sewer business manager for right now. She feels as though it really would be best to try to get that problem resolved before bringing someone in and frustrating them. Speaking, are those fair words to use? Good enough. The MRPC has agreed to provide us with 15 hours a week of planning staff support as we try to finalize the hire of a land use director, and the gentleman at the state who is preparing the cost estimate on doing our weights and measures inspections was on vacation, so that has been postponed probably a week before we get that answer, perhaps 2. The DPW director, Heather, as one of her last duties, here right to the last minute, getting everything cleaned up that she could, and Julie have completed their review of not the pricing proposals, but the qualifications and submission, the non-price proposal on the trash and recycling services. We did open those pricing proposals today, and I'm meeting with Mr. Bernard and Julie tomorrow to go through the full quantity takeoff with our tonnage and the like, and I hope to be able to provide a report on that by the following week as well. I am concerned, I want to be able to get you, your full information on like Thursday. I'm not as comfortable with information coming in as late as it does. I want you to have a little more time. So we'll do our best to hit these targets. But I also showed Annie, some of the select board packages in other communities where it's all one, and then it goes for the citizens can see it as well. So I appreciate your forbearance over the next couple of weeks as I try to learn things here. Proposals for Marshall Park designer services are due in this week, and the center roof project as well. Now, we didn't receive any bids for the library solar shade project, so I've asked Julia to go straight to the state bid list. And I know that sometimes they can be a little bit more, but frankly, at this point, given staffing and other issues, I've asked her to use that as her first resource, because even if it's a few dollars more, the amount of staff time we save in her trying to, or the staff trying to write an RFP, advertise it, evaluate it. We'll keep track on it, but I think that at this point in time at least is the way to go.
If I may ask.
Sure.
So for the, are you saying that we're not engaging the OSD lists and pulling off like TRDs and?
I don't think we're using it as effective as we could. Certainly the police chief has used it, DPW has used it, but I think that we could use it more as the first line of resource. And, if we're comfortable with the pricing, we like the contractor, they've been vetted by the state. Just imagine the amount of time that saves facilities or the other department head. They have to write the RFP or IFP. They changed the terms around on me. Julie has to issue it. There's a mandatory walkthrough. We have to wait for proposals. I mean, you knew the day of the walkthrough you weren't getting any bids because nobody showed up.
Yeah.
So I think we can make slightly better use of it.
All right. And for clarification, just, I think not everyone knows what we're talking
Oh,
about.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
I think for clarification, what there is the state engages in contracts, multi-year contracts with a variety of vendors and a variety of fields every year, and they become available for municipalities and state agencies to hire off of those contracts. And there's, quite a grid of when you can do it, what the requirements are, but a lot of the times with IFBs or RFPs, typically those are issued over 50,000, sometimes more. I think in our town it's been over 10, but there is an enormous amount of legwork that goes into an IFB, whereas oftentimes you can hire directly from the contract list and circumvent what, or otherwise would be a very lengthy process.
Well, I would say comply with 30B while minimizing staff
That's probably a good
time,
way.
because we're truthfully not circumventing it.
It's not
We're
circumventing,
using a tool, and not all state contracts are everywhere in the state. They might not be in, somebody from Quincy might not be operating in Berkshire County, let's say, as an example. So I'd like to see us push a little bit more in that direction for the time I'm here with you anyways. I would like to say and thank Heather, who gave me a great overall briefing as I prepared to solo. She was right here to the 11th hour. I mean, she had more folders pushing into me. I just can't thank her enough. As to my efforts, in addition to learning much of the various documents and status, I attended a full team staff meeting last week in which I got a chance to meet most of your staff, finance team meeting as well. And by the way, Linda McQuaid is someone I hired in another community, and I look forward to working with her here again. I've had extensive conversations with the majority of your staff to date, toured the Ritter Building, the Activity Center, and am arranging a full tour of your public safety building now that the fire chief and police chief are both back from vacation. I want to say thank you to the citizens and to you and to all the staff for their patience as I learn your local procedures and practices and what drive is that on? And how many different passwords do I have to do? So I do thank you for that. It has come to my attention that it is not possible for the general public to email the select board as a whole. If you use the @Lunenburg, I mean, that's an internal address, it turns out. So if you're outside the organization, it doesn't come to you all. So we are going to simply add a little blurb on the webpage that if you want to email the select board as a whole, just send it to Annie, and we'll get it distributed out to you. They'll still have the contacts to mail you individually. If they want to mail you all individually, because they really don't want it coming through to us, they can do that. But that will allow citizens to mail you all at once as a group without getting caught by this internal device. And I want to thank Member Remke for bringing that to my attention. And then next week, as I've said, I'll tell you each week, I'll be here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I've already begun to line up some Zoom meetings for Thursday and Friday when I'm away. So, you know, the 3 days will be physically here, and then on Thursdays, Fridays, I'll do some emails and some Zooms, and try to give you all I can while retaining my own sanity.
All right.
Are there any questions with any of that? Thank you for your patience, a little bit lengthier than I would have liked.
All right. Any questions related to the interim town manager report? All right. We're going to go down our old business. Public communications policy discussion. As I indicated in the public comments this evening, I am making a motion to repeal policy number 2.13.
Second.
All right.
But before we vote, I would like to ask the vice chair, because I asked this 2 weeks ago, and it was roundly refused by yourself and the chair to even discuss this. So what is the change of heart? Why are we rescinding it now?
Sure. So, as I noted in my public comment this evening, I think that there was I have to say this slowly to be careful of how I'm saying what I'm saying. We received a communication, and it was confidential in nature, and I was simultaneously aware of a liability to the town. And the intent was to delay, to allow the town manager and others to recognize that the potential liability to the town was serious, and that it needed to be understood. And in the final few weeks of the town manager's time with us, I think she understood that, and I think the town manager understood it. So I think the intent behind the policy, I don't think it's bad policy generally to say that before there's a press release that goes out to the public that the select board should be made aware of it. The nature of our meetings being public, that once you start discussing it in a public meeting, it's not like you're withholding what you're discussing, that what you are discussing is the process, what you're discussing is the specific verbiage of how it moves forward, but the topic certainly becomes public once the board has to discuss it. Nonetheless, that's where I'm coming from on this. I think it was situational. Again, I don't think that in general the policy is terribly bad, but I think that the process, after learning and not being aware when we passed it, but after learning that we did violate our own policies, while I do believe that the board has many times violated its policies, and can, that it's better form to try to comply.
So I asked the board to, that night when it was first proposed, for a delay so that we could, because it had been presented to us, literally emailed to us while we were at a meeting such as this, and that was the same meeting 10 minutes later that was passed. I asked for what I thought was a reasonable delay so that the board could think about what the ramifications would be, and myself, Ms. Emke, and the town manager all concurred that we should at least have a week. That was roundly refused by the majority of the board. Then when I brought it up 2 weeks ago, that we should rescind it, because when I went home that evening after it was passed, it was a violation. I was roundly refused that it was doing it. Now I'm hearing that we want to do it, we want to rescind it, and if I'm hearing it correctly, we want to rescind it because the purpose it served is completed. So we use the board policies to take care of a temporary situation, which is more of an abuse of the policy making than passing it that night. Absolutely. So I just don't understand, I hope this doesn't come up, but you know what? I don't have any confidence that this kind of thing won't happen again, because it keeps happening. This is not the way to judge policies. This is not the way to pass them. It's not a way to discuss them. The openness that you just suggested is when we talk about things, they're out in the open. We didn't talk about anything in the open. In fact, the town manager chastised you for injecting the Board of Selectmen in a non-Board of Selectmen authoritative personnel matter. That's what her words were, that you injected yourself into a personnel matter that is clearly the jurisdiction of the town manager. It's just not the way to run a government, and nobody has any trust or reliability in how the laws are passed or how the guidelines are passed if we do this. So I'm glad to rescind it. I hope it never comes back. As far as the content of the bylaw, or not bylaw, but the procedure itself or guideline itself, it was way ambiguous. I got calls from at least 4 different boards and commissions saying, wait a minute, what can I talk about and not talk about as a public document? Does this really put a wrench in everything that they're going to be doing? Anybody who has to do public announcements, whether it's the police department, the DPW, the finance committee, the Board of Health, anybody that can issue public announcements, do they have to, in an emergency or not, come to the Board of Selectmen? It was just, and if we ever revisit this again, I certainly want to hear from town council about what their opinion about it is as far as enforceability and how broad it is written, et cetera. But I'm certainly happy to rescind it as I wanted to 2 weeks ago.
Well, Tom, I want to comment on just a couple of things. So, first, it has been our practice that we can't share information with one another prior to meetings, and so when we have things to share, we share it, at the very beginning, typically, of a meeting. The policy that was proposed, what it said was that it excluded community events, it excluded community services, and it excluded emergency services. And so there was a limited scope to it from the offset, from my view. There was a limited scope. But further than that, to repeal any policy of this board takes 3 members. That's it. And so when we have a policy that says that you need 4 members for something to pass, an 80% threshold, that's a little atypical to begin with. I'm not, it doesn't, that rule, not being aware of it prior to and now knowing it, I don't know if that's great policy in and of itself, but I do agree that it's generally exceptional. And if I can just ask for the gallery to be a little quieter tonight, I generally do agree that, we are a situation, policies should be broad. And I do believe that the policy is broad. Again, I've vocalized, you asked me why the change of heart. I don't believe that there's any answer that I can actually give you that will satisfy you on this topic, but I gave you my honest answer here of why I think it should be repealed now. It's not that I think the policy was poor or not that I think the policy was bad. I think the process, I concur that the process of it wasn't the best. And further, that generally speaking, that it's better formed to discuss a policy over multiple meetings and get engagement from multiple people. Again, the simplest way of saying it, Tom, is that if we did nothing, we would be looking at a $4 million lawsuit that we would likely lose. And from my perspective, I felt strongly that a delay to allow us to figure out liability here and for it to be universally recognized by people making decisions would be to our benefit, and it was. And so I can't honestly tell you that I regret it, because I don't. I know what would have happened if we didn't do it. That there needed to be an understanding. And it provided enough time for that understanding to exist. And the majority of the board, again, I proposed it, I didn't call for the vote, I didn't, I could have opposed it, but I didn't. I supported it. But I mean, we can keep, I don't see the benefit in going back and forth on this. I respect, Tom, your very strong opinions on this. I respect strongly, I was also contacted by several people who are in total disagreement with the process, even after the first meeting and before the second meeting when you brought it up. I'm aware that a lot of people had a lot of problems with the way that happened and that the way that occurred. Ultimately, I believe it was the right thing to do. But I think it's important for us as a board to work together. And I can respect that if we have a policy that two members feel this strongly about, then the best course of action is to repeal it. And if we want to pursue it at a future point, then let's pursue it at a future point. And that's just where I'm at.
I'd like to comment briefly, just for the record. I also received calls and feedback from citizens and other members of other boards and so on about the content, the wording of the policy, the process, but also just the wording being too broad, not knowing how to interpret it. You commented about not sharing information prior to the meeting. I mean, I don't see why something like that should go to Annie to go in our Google Drive before the meeting. Like the interim town manager said, ideally getting us information well in advance rather than an hour before, or in this case, it was literally while we're sitting in the meeting, I'm refreshing my email. I put the charge for the budget task force in the drive ahead of time, so I'm not aware that we can't. I thought we share information that's going to be discussed at a meeting, so we have time to read it, to think about it. That makes for a more efficient meeting. As far as the comments about previous town manager coming around, I don't know where that's coming from, because in all of my conversations, she was very opposed to the policy and actually spoke to the contrary, that the policy opened the town up for potential liability. So I'm hearing two completely different things. And I guess, I mean, I know some of the confidential information, but I'm guessing I don't know all of it. So I'm just going to leave it there, because I'm hearing two totally opposite stories, and I don't know what. Anyway, at the end of the day, I'm glad it's being repealed, because if it wasn't going to be, or rescinded, whatever, I was going to ask for town council to review, the board have to vote for it, but town council to review the policy because of the wording. Actually, there was concern that others shared with me that that alone could open us up to some potential litigation down the road. So that made me very nervous that it was pushed through like that and wasn't vetted appropriately.
Renee, I think that I agree with you that from my perspective in the past, when a member has written a policy, I believe that we should be able to share that policy well before a meeting occurs, so that way every member of the board has equal access to the information. The practice, however, has been that we have not, as members, been able to add to the Google Drive. That has been no, I know that you have. I know that we all have access.
I just did.
No, I recognize.
Or send it to Annie.
I recognize that. What I'm trying to express is that in the past, and that has not been the practice of us adding anything individually to the drive, of us sending it to the town manager's office. And in the past, when I have sent things to the town manager to get added to the Google Drive, I was advised that it cannot be distributed prior to a meeting, that it has to happen, at the meeting. And I can forward you those communications after this meeting, so that way you understand what information that I had that I was operating off of how we have been just doing business. And I recognize that I've always thought that we should do things differently, but I mean, that's just how we've been doing it.
I want to say that, we work under a charter, our town works under the charter. We have a town manager style charter, where the Board of Selectmen, according to the charter, basically, for the most part, is a policy-making body. And it's a policy-making body which would lead one to believe that policies are important, and then the passing of such policies and the consideration and evaluation and analysis of such policies is important. This process didn't follow those, even though in our policies, at the top, I think it's the second one, tells how you can make a policy. And that's what we broke. So we broke like one of our top policies, even though it was requested that we not do it. Now, I do not disagree with the vice chair that he does not regret this. That is the one thing I absolutely 100% agree with. I believe that he does not regret this. But it is a misuse and an abuse of that policy-making policy, especially for an instance that he is editorializing information that should not be shared with the public, and is certainly dubious about what the liability would be. I spoke with the same people he spoke with. They did not feel the same. So, again, the important part of our charter is that the town manager and the department heads run the town on the day-to-day operation. I have said at this table on television many, many times over the years, I have to trust the town manager, I have to trust the department heads. The moment that I don't trust them, I'm not looking to correct them, I'm looking to replace them, okay? And that is the problem. That is the problem. It is certainly within the purview and the authority in this case that it should be left to them, and nothing the board should have done should have interceded with that, because I disagree with the vice chair's interpretation or perspective that we were going to be on the hook for, I don't know, $4 million. That's the number that first time I've heard that number. So, that, I do not believe that is the case. And the people who are involved in this do not believe that was the case. So, again, I would reiterate everything I said, and I don't want to go over it and round, so.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The motion passes and the policy is repealed. To number 2, select board staff appreciation. I'm not quite sure what the chair wanted us to discuss or expected me to discuss on this topic, but I think that what we heard tonight from Chris, I think, is representative of what I've been hearing for a while about the low morale across the workforce and feeling unvalued and unappreciated. It would seem that I had a conversation with the chair prior to him adding this to the agenda. I know that he had his own ideas about this, and I was kind of looking in a different direction for different things. So I don't have anything to offer on this topic tonight. Was any other member want to contribute to this discussion this evening?
I do not.
All right. Town manager salary range?
I can say that and this will be kind of a town committee report, but the town manager screening committee met last Wednesday, where we interviewed a potential recruiting firm, Community Paradigm, who specializes in town manager searches, as well as other municipal employee searches. I believe that if we proceed with that, whether it's with them or any other recruiter, I think that they'll want to play a part and help us do a salary range in the market for towns such as ours, and so I would probably hold off on this until it's determined which direction we're going to go, if we're going to go with a recruiter or not.
All right.
And
Of course.
we did get a request from the chair of the screening committee with some criteria that they'd like to have considered. We advised them to go to the finance committee as soon as possible, get a transfer to fund this, and I have reached out to 2 prior communities to get RFPs that I've used. Hopefully, they'll get them to us in the next day or two. We can cut and paste as long as I remember to change the right town names and such.
That would be helpful, yeah.
And have it ready to go as soon as the money's in place.
Okay. I'm assuming that you would be checking with at least the chair of the committee, just as a final RFP for the description at least?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Once we get the thing cut and pasted together and modified for what we think is going on, we'll send that to the committee itself.
Oh, good. Okay, perfect.
For review. We may circulate it for individual comments, depending upon timing, as opposed to waiting
Right.
2 weeks for a committee meeting. But absolutely, it's my process to try to include as many user entities, shareholders, whatever we want to call them, in review of these types of documents.
Perfect. Thank you.
So if I remember right, I think FinCom voted on those, the allocation of those funds at the last meeting.
They voted the
last week?
transfer?
The reserve fund transfer?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
17,000, was that?
That would be in the range.
Evan Waters
yeah.
would know, Evan, if you're out. But yeah, I think they voted on it at the last
Okay,
meeting.
I'll check with Ezzy.
I think it was last Thursday, maybe?
Okay, super, we can get going faster then.
I haven't watched that meeting, so I'll look at it too, yeah.
Last Thursday, you think?
Yeah.
I can look up the schedule, see when they met.
That's okay, we can check it.
I have no concept of time.
All right. Outdoor dining policy, I don't know if we have any proposals or actions to take on this one this evening.
You don't, what I'd like to do is to take the chair's notes, Annie's notes, and bring you a formal policy, broken down by authority to adopt, applicability, what the actual policy is. I'd like to make it a little bit more, and then we'll circulate that to fire chief, DPW, police chief, for some comments, staff comments. And so I would say we're probably 3 weeks out to have it in front of you, to be honest with you.
All right. Well,
That's the bad news. The good news is nobody's chomping at the bit right now.
Right, well, we passed an extension, so.
yeah, we extended the existing. All right, so we'll target then a meeting in September for that, and you can work that out with the chair.
Yes.
All right. Review ARPA funding request and committed funds. So Selectman Imke indicated that she worked on a spreadsheet. Selectman Imke, did you get, Selectman Nuzzolo said to me that he received some individual requests that didn't come to the entire board, that only came to him. I asked him to forward those to you. Did you receive those?
I did not receive them, no.
Okay.
That's unfortunate.
From which
Yeah,
groups? Do we know who the groups were?
I
I-
have no idea what the communications were.
I think the historical, somebody, was it Historical Society or Village of Flat Hill, I think, emailed us individually, but I think we all got it. Because I asked,
That's on here, yeah.
yeah, I got that, because I asked them, I said, oh, I was the only one on the 2 line, did you send this to everybody? And she said yes.
Yep. So again, I briefly spoke with, and it wasn't even a conversation, it was through text. The chair had mentioned to me, again, that he had received additional requests that weren't on the list that you prepared. And again, I asked him to forward those to you.
Yeah, that would be great to have, because it's August.
Because it's what?
It's August. I mean, we need to, I've been pushing for 2 months. We need to move on this money. I don't want to lose a nickel.
I'm
this.
with you.
I was hoping that we could, if we adopt the process we did last year, that we could come next week with our prioritizations and ideally allocate some, if not all.
Well, I mean, again, I have not seen those emails. I don't know if it's 1, I don't know if it's 5, I have no idea the quantity. I do recognize that the chair is in a military training environment right now. I can I will reach out to him, and if you have availability to update this.
If I get the email, I will update it, and I can I can either send it to the interim town manager and Annie, or I can do that as well as upload it to the Google Drive. I mean, I've seen some emails from the chair, but nothing about this.
Okay.
Does anybody on the dais know when the chair is due back? Because I do not.
I believe it is this Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
All right, so I think there's ample time then for the board, if we receive an updated list, even if that updated list came in on Friday, I think that we have ample time before the next meeting to perform the task that we did similarly, in which we go down the list and prioritize what our priorities are numerically. Is your recommendation only for us to list like the top 10, or what are we suggesting?
I mean, if we adopt what we did last year, every single
Yeah, we
line
ranked
gets-
everything.
Yep.
We have to, including, so at the bottom of this list, the top half are the requests we received this summer, this past month or so. And then at the bottom are FY '25 capital requests that were not funded, so they fell below the line. There's one thing, I guess it's an action item for Carter. I think the Milo Advanced Training Simulation System, I think that earmark did get approved. Is that official? Can we take that?
I think so.
I think I
it
saw
is.
that.
Yeah.
So we can take that off the list. So I will do that when I update. I think since Selectman Moore wasn't here last year, we maybe review, I guess the question is, do we want to use one as our top priority?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think, did we do that?
Yeah, that's.
I thought we did a
Rank
sum or
it,
something.
rank it
Okay.
from 1, which is the highest priority, down to
Okay.
however many.
Okay,
And
and
then
then
I
ranking
would-
every single one on here.
Every single line.
Okay, great.
So even though they're broken up into
So the
two
black and the blue,
sections,
yes.
everything.
Okay.
Did you already, Renee, did you already plug in the formulas?
I have the median in column P instead of the average. That's why it says pound divide by 0, because there's nothing in there. And there's a column for the prioritization as well as comments. If you have, like, if you don't want to approve, you rank it, but only for a portion of the money they're asking for. There is one comment I want to share with the board, because I think it's important. It was from a recommendation from Heather when I was asking her about FY '25 budget and things that weren't funded that may be appropriate for ARPA, and she actually had a recommendation that I think is worth passing on. She said, and I'm quoting her, "I think year one of Harper's," so that was a request from the finance director, the payroll. He requested 3 years. Heather said, "I think year one of Harper's could come out of the consultant services for ARPA reporting line, which was 60K that had been approved way back when. And the balance of the 60,000 could then be used for anything needed for transitioning to a new accounting software. And help from the consultant we used during FY '25, I think that was the Randy Mercier. Randy Mercier, to provide munis assistance throughout this fiscal year." So there's a line on the spreadsheet from Director of Municipal Finance for munis consultant as well as payroll services. So that 3-year contract is 106,000+. Heather's saying we can use year one can come out of the 60,000 that we had allocated for ARPA administration, I think was the line.
Yep.
And then the balance of that 60,000 could cover some of the munis consultant, if that makes sense. And I know Ezekiel broke out the cost of year 1, 2, 3. I don't remember it off the top of my head.
So although we have, 1 point, according to this list as currently updated, and again, noting that there are some additional revisions here, that there's $1.12 million in request. And at this time, as far as what the remaining balance is, I know that the intent is to make sure everything gets expended, but what is the actual remaining balance? Do we know
I
that?
think it's 313,413.
313. So at this point, we have 313,000 to allocate. We have $1.1 million in requests.
And an additional 600,000 in capital requests that.
Yes, and an additional,
Yep.
exactly. And so what we're looking at right now is 1.7 million. We have 313,000 to allocate. But again, there is the note that anything that's already been allocated that we don't have the guarantee will be expended, or rather under contract, by some point in the fall, that we will reallocate to something that we can get under contract by the end of the year.
And I think the time to get these things under contract is this month. I mean, the one big thing, there's that, and I know, Mr. Vice Chair, you're aware, the municipal building, $225,000.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
I am personally ready to pull that back.
Yep. Well, I mean, the funds have been allocated, and I mean, Renee, I'll be very frank with you. You know, the problem that we have with the municipal building design, and it's been a couple of years, is that we were gearing up, we're in 2024. In 2023, we were gearing up to go to town meeting to ask for a vote to solve this problem based on the plan that we had in front of us. And what occurred that year was a tax issue. And we've already gone over, you know, kind of how that happened, but, you know, it was clear that there was no pathway to get anything approved at the 2023 annual town meeting. And then we ran into another issue in which an RFP for the revaluation wasn't published until July of 2023. And the effect of that was that we weren't able to complete the tax stuff in time. And so going into this year, we went into this year with the awareness that, similar to last year, that everyone was getting hit with this outrageous tax bill right before the town meeting, and it was a question of an override. And so throwing a second override on top of it, which would have been for the debt to do the public project. So the reason for these delays have been what the money that's needed is to get a final cost estimate and a final kind of just nice picture design of what we're asking the voters to approve. And we need to be able to go to a town meeting in which it could potentially pass. And I think it was pretty clear that there was no path for it to pass the previous 2 years. We are on track to go to this year. I'm expecting this RFP to get published this month, and so I don't think this 225 is going to be available because these funds are absolutely needed in order to get those final numbers to the voters for next year. But I hear you.
So the RFP is going to go out this month?
RFP will go out this month.
Has the committee met?
The committee has not met for the majority of the year, but we will be meeting at the end of August.
All right, because the last meeting I'm aware of was November 8th.
It probably was November or December of
It was
last year.
before
It's
the
been
special town meeting.
Correct. Yep, the next step in that, you are correct, Renee. Where we were at last fall was the next steps was to publish this RFP. That was the next step. And it was pretty clear, the town manager advised that we should not go before the town at the spring town meeting with this request, and so we delayed. And so there's no action for the board to take until we go before the committee. So, I mean, the RFP documents have existed for a year.
They have existed, because I wasn't aware they were ever written. There is an RFP document?
Correct.
Written?
Oh, yeah.
Because the last meeting I saw, I thought you guys were discussing, the next meeting we'll talk about the RFP.
Yep. No, the RFP is written, Renee. The RFP has not been published. So the RFP documents, we worked on those with the town manager. I did, in somewhere in the end of the summer, beginning of the fall of last year.
Because I honestly don't even remember what the plan is.
All right.
So that's
Well, I
enough,
mean,
if you
yeah.
can get an update at an upcoming select board meeting to know, because I thought there was going to be one at the annual town meeting in your apps, even though you weren't there, I thought someone else was.
The request was to pass it over by
No,
the...
just an update, to give an update on,
And I'm letting you know the request, we had it on the agenda for the fall, the special town meeting. The moderator, because of the length of the meeting, asked us to pass it over. And then we were anticipating to go before the spring as well.
So my understanding is we're going to get a confirmation from the chair upon his return that we have all of the ARPA requests, and that Selectwoman Emke is going to collate them and put them in here, and it can be shared with the whole board
I'll email
because,
the board when the update
Right.
is in the drive.
and that can be shared because it's just a collation of things. It's not, it's not an editorial at all. It's just listing all the emails
It's a
in one
worksheet.
place, right? Yep. Okay, and then if that happens, we're going to rank them hopefully for next Tuesday.
Come to the next meeting with our, well, what we did last year, right, was we sent all of our individual rankings individually to the chair, who then compiled them.
Yep. Okay.
Will Caesar be able to do that? I don't know.
Only Caesar will be able to say. Nobody on this
I
board is
can-
going to be able to commit.
does it
but
matter?
he can-
Does it have to be the chair? I mean, I'll collect them and collate them. I don't care. I mean, I've been living in spreadsheets lately, so it doesn't matter to me. My priority is to get going on this. That's my priority. I mean, we just passed a $938,000 override. I don't want to see a nickel of this money get lost. That would make me so sick.
Well, Renee, I mean, there are some positives here, right? I mean, you know, when you look down at some of the things that are in this capital plan, and even the things that aren't in the capital plan, that there are always things that the town can spend money on. And I think the probability of, you know, maybe there might be $1, maybe there might be 5, things end up getting rounded. But in my view, that there's no possible way that we're going to end this year and not have all of this money under agreement in some form. And I'm with you on everything. You know, I think we need to identify that date. That's the cutoff date. I don't agree it should be August. I think it should probably be somewhere in October. But I think that there needs to be a date where anything that's already been allocated, if not under agreement, we need to have our backup list of what we can quickly get under agreement in the course of 30, 45 days, so that way it occurs by the end of the fiscal, or excuse me, calendar year. But I think we're all on the same page here, and I get your frustration. It's always frustrating when you have a, you know, especially as you come back to the building thing, it is frustrating to the members of the building committee that we have worked hard to get to a point, and then because of what we perceive to be staff errors, that we can't move forward on anything that we've worked on. So I get it. I get it. Any other discussion tonight on ARPA funding request and committed funds?
Man, Mr.
Of course.
I do get concerned about this word committed, because if something goes wrong, you don't get to recapture those monies.
Correct.
And reprogram them. So, to the extent you can prioritize projects that you're pretty comfortable can actually have the funds fully expended, and you may be in a position where you end up doing something, you would have rather done this, but for certain this money could be spent. So I would ask you to keep that in mind. Also, we've talked about staff morale and recruiting here tonight, and I see some items that are chairs for the meeting room. You know, you call up WB Mason, they roll a half a dozen in, you pick the one you want, you sign the purchase order, and it's not quite that simple, but pretty straightforward. Tree removal, not hard to do. So there are some projects here that I would just ask you to think both in terms of staff morale. If you want to spread some of the money around, I see a number of things from the Historical Society, but I also see some low-cost ticket items they could get done for certain. You could show them you appreciate their efforts, but, you know, keep it nominal. So I would just ask you to think about sort of overall game plan. With an eye towards trying to make sure we get as much expended, not just committed by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good point, because after December 31st, if we had allocated funds towards some project that's, we can't do it, it came in way too high, we can't move those funds anywhere else.
Not as I understand the statute.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's
That's why it's got to be, from what I understand from Heather, it's got to be contracted. And
Yes.
anything, to my mind, that's not contracted, all those things that Carter just said,
Yeah.
that we should have available to spend, because they're going to, things that aren't going to hit the list, but we should have them held close to us. Anything that's not under contract by mid-November, we should start just getting the ones that can be easily attained right away. I don't want to have a meeting before Christmas deciding that, you know what, we have $100,000 that we had a contract fall through or something. That's not what we want. We want to make sure everything is out there. And I'd rather have a month of respite and like, oh, we got through, than 2 days of craziness trying to get something through on the last week of December.
I agree.
All right. Anything else on?
So, should we send them to Caesar when we're done, or do we decide
I-
who's gonna collect the prioritizations and make the master?
I have no problem sending it to a member, as long as it's only a member.
It can only be a member, yeah.
Right.
What would the board suggest? I mean, Renee, you seem like you're itching to
I don't
do
know,
it.
I mean, I'm willing to do, it's hard because Caesar's not here, so I don't want to commit him in his, I don't know when he's back and if he would have time to do it.
If you're willing to do it, Renee, maybe we just go that route, just because he's not here, we can't.
I'm willing to do that for the expedience sake, sure.
And just to be clear, once it's all collated, it can go in the drive, correct?
No,
No?
not with the scores. Because that'll tip off people, that'll be
After this, no.
an open discussion.
we
What
will
Tom's
discuss
saying
it.
is concurring with what I said earlier, where our practice has been that once you have something that could be an opinion,
Right.
that we have not shared that prior to a meeting. And so typically, the chair would need to hold that
Right.
until the meeting.
Or you can hold it until.
Or
the
you
meeting.
can hold it
Right.
until the
yeah.
meeting.
But you won't be able to share everybody's prioritization before the meeting. That would
They
not, that
drop
would
it
be
in the
violation.
drive
of-
at the meeting.
Correct.
Right,
Okay.
yep,
Even though it's done and locked,
Correct.
no one can,
Correct.
nobody should be able to see it until the meeting.
okay. Okay.
All right, so I think that what we're saying is that we're going to send all of our roll-ups to Renee, that Renee will roll them up, and that they will be distributed. Generally, the practice has been 5 minutes before the meeting, so you can email them or drop them in the drive right before the meeting.
Mr. Vice Chair, at your discretion, somebody has their hand up, so.
Paula, please. I always refer to former select board members as selectmen, but I know you have a new title as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair. I'm here on behalf of the Sewer Commission about our ARPA requests. And I want to thank Selectman Emke for her comments, because the consultant is not something we budgeted for. It's not something, we don't have any input into the Munis software. We did not budget for consulting. So I certainly hope that the funding for the consultant is spread to all town departments that are affected by this software. I also think funding for financial accounting is important. Whether or not it can be done prior to the deadline, I don't know. But I also want to comment on our request for manhole funding. I finished the RFP a couple weeks ago for the manholes. Unfortunately, it hasn't been able to be done prior because of all the time I spend on Munis problems. But I have completed it. We had the inspections done. So my hope is it's before Bill right now to review it. And my hope is we can get it to the procurement officer before the end of the week and go out for bid. So I certainly want to keep that funding available. It's very clear that I&I is a significant problem in town. We are seeing, because of the rain we had several months ago, we're seeing astronomical costs to the city of Fitchburg and the city of Leominster. As you all know, we have lost funding. We've not been able to do demands, so we've lost funding in the area of $9,700 to the enterprise fund because of the software problems. So I would just wanted to let you know that we are moving forward with the manhole IFB, and expect that it will be contracted by November. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one comment to address. Ezekiel's email did mention the consultant would go towards sewer utility billing was included, so maybe you want to
Okay,
talk
thank
to
you,
him.
thank you.
All right, any other conversation on ARPA? All right, sounds like we have a good plan forward. So draft financial policy manual, and briefly speaking with the town manager, it seems as if the next steps, or part of the process there, is to float this through other boards and committees and staff for feedback. And so that will be ongoing, and hopefully we'll get an update end of the month or next month. And I understand that the board committee handbook is in the same process. Is that correct?
That is correct. The document we sent you for review today, however, is frankly my priority. And so I'd like to send these out staged so that you can focus on one and clear the deck on that, and then we'll get the next one out.
That'd be helpful. What would also be ideal is, we really rely on the drive for all documentation, everything to be in the drive. So if you can just have Annie add them to the drive, not just email, so that way we can just pull it up from the drive.
Sure. I'm still learning where that is.
Yep.
but We can get that done.
He has multiple drives now.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. All right, let's go on to current business. I don't have any minutes in front of us. Would you mind handing me the warrants? So we do
We did
have.
have a discussion with the staff about the minutes. Yesterday, I expressed my desire that we get no less than 2 a week done. I can live with that, given the other workload that's going on, and we'll follow up that conversation tomorrow as well.
All right, good. Okay, all right, and all right, we have a couple things to sign, so we'll just go through them. All right, we have an accounts payable warrant in the amount of $80,070 and, 67 cents. We have another accounts payable warrant in the amount of $339,832.22. We have some letters to sign for members who have resigned, including Susan Andrews from the Personnel Committee, Anna Lockwood from the Parks Commission, John Reynolds from the Sewer Commission, Steve Dubois from the Zoning Board of Appeals. However, these require the signature of the chair, and so they will need to wait. And then we have additional documents that we previously agreed to that we need to sign in person. So one is the intermunicipal agreement for the wastewater collection, treatment, and disposal between City of Leominster, Town of Lunenburg, Mass. All right, so we have, it looks like Renee's signature up here, but we need the rest of the board. We previously approved this. I will pass that down. We also have the lease for the teen center that we previously approved, and I will sign and send this down. And thanks Selectman Imke also for signing that one. And then we also, I think we have 2 true copies of the lease, actually. And so let me sign both. All right. All right, and I'm sending them in the folder. Do we have any other documents to sign this evening?
Not sure what
right.
What we've got here.
Okay, so the only thing is tomorrow, if Annie can jump
We have
on
a Class
this.
2 for Colonial Motors.
I think she accidentally printed this off,
Very
because
good.
this was what should have been the chapter lane. So if members can make themselves available, if you can have Annie notify us of when that's corrected and when the chapter lane auto license is available, that way members can come in over the next, or at least 3 of us available over the next day or 2 to come in.
Yeah, I can come in early before I go to work.
What time's the?
Likely
what-
not.
How late on Thursday? I
Which,
definitely can't do tomorrow.
yeah, Thursday is 6 PM
I
Thursday's
might
till
be able to
6.
make it in by Thursday.
and 8 AM.
I'm usually back in town by 6. I can do my best to try to get here a
Can
little earlier.
can we
It's
find
just
out
not-
if we can do them digitally?
I was going to suggest that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Keys to the building.
Yeah,
so if you
that's
need to
the
get
other
in,
thing.
just Let me know, and I'll sign at the same time.
Okay.
All right,
Oh, that's done.
okay, you guys just work that out, you and Tom? All right, perfect. All right, so warrants are done. Any action items this evening?
I want to put an agenda item, but I'll talk to Carter after this meeting.
Okay. Committee reports.
Yes, I have a couple. So Budget Task Force met last night. It was our third meeting. Our chair, Tony Scolombrini Jr., has set out a schedule. Every 2 weeks we meet, and he has topics laid out. Last night's discussion was about revenues, sources of revenues in town. And I want to shout out to our town finance director, Ezekiel. He was emailing me on Saturday, pulling out data, helping with slides, so he was working on the weekend. So we had, I think, a really good discussion last night, and found a couple of things that we're going to follow up on. And the next meeting in 2 weeks, the topic is expenditures, obligatory expenditures specifically. So that's moving on. And then school committee is meeting tomorrow, and their agenda has a draft FY '26 to FY '35 capital plan. So that should be an interesting meeting, and I think that's it, yes.
Last Wednesday, I had 2 meetings. So we had the town manager screening committee, of which there were 2 agenda items. One, we heard from former town manager, now former town manager, about what we should be looking for in the position, what are the areas of town that we should be focusing on, which ones are okay, basically just a leaving perspective on where we are and where we should be going in her eyes, and a little bit discussion about the recruitment firm, and that was the second agenda item, was an interview / discussion with the recruitment firm of Community Paradigm. The 2 gentlemen representing them, Bernie Lynch is the co-founder. I think they're both co-founders, but Bernie Lynch is the CEO, and I can't remember the other gentleman's name, unfortunately.
John Petrin.
John Petrin, thank you. All right. They were both excellent, and they brought a good perspective and they have a long history of doing these kind of searches. So it was really, as somebody who was on the fence about whether I thought it would be beneficial and prudent to spend the money to find it, at the end of that, I did come to that conclusion. They have done over 100 placements over the last 8 years of town managers, many in this area, across the state, but many in north central Mass, which is interesting. Lots and lots of experience. Both of the gentlemen have been town managers, as well as, and before founding this company. So lots of experience, very well spoken, lots of background, so it was a great discussion. After that, we had the capital planning committee, where we're getting a much earlier start than usual. This is like our 3rd meeting this year, and we discussed basically the schedule going forward, and we're going to try to get an earlier start to the department presentations, so that if there are any questions, in the past, we've gotten questions, the presentations have been so late that we don't always get answers back before we have to make the end of the year decision. We're trying to push that up forward and try to get the more complex ones up front, and the ones that are more regular, like the police and fire, have more regular capital requests because there are a lot of it is vehicle rotation, et cetera. We're going to push them out because we have fewer questions, and that's where we are with that, talking about scoring and how it would come. So we're trying to set the schedule and get done by mid-November and give ourselves like 3 weeks extra time should anything arise. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
All right.
The Master Plan Steering Committee is not meeting again until October, but from the Economic Development Committee, just wanted to again mention the 2nd annual Town Official Meet and Greet will be held Thursday, September 26th at 5:30 p.m. at Low Places Ranch, and we hope to see you all there.
All right, thank you. All right, upcoming meeting and events. We have meeting scheduled on August the 13th, August the 20th, and then we will be breaking until the day after Labor Day. And as noted earlier, the chair of the board will be back at the end of this week from his military training. I believe he is in the woods of New Jersey. All right, do we have any public comments this evening from the town manager?
None, Mr. Chairman.
All right, well, thank you so much for being here with us. All right, any public comments from the public? Mr. Passios.
Thank you, Dave Passios.
Oh, we can't hear you quite yet. I have to ask the booth to unmute you.
He's on me, I think he's just quiet.
Okay.
Can't hear you,
No.
Dave.
This happened last night, we couldn't hear him.
All right, can you, No, unfortunately, Dave, we can't hear you in the room.
Okay, it can wait.
Is the booth able to work on this?
Interesting, because the audio's
All right. Dave, they're saying that the sound is on in the room and that it may be on your end. So we're going to go to another public comment.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Dave, if you want to call in on the phone while we have the other public comment, that'll give you some time to call in by phone.
Yeah.
All right.
I think I found it. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
And if we can just ask the
Sorry
booth
about
to
that.
turn it up just a little bit. Dave?
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but my microphone got turned down on the computer. I had it way up. Dan Pastios, 56 Whiting Street. My comment this evening is, again, as a couple of your members have expressed their concerns about the ARPA money, we're really going to stop kicking this thing down the road. You've been playing around with this for over a year, and every week I hear, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to change this, we're going to change that. We've pulled back allocations, we've reallocated. The one thing I do want to mention is that I've heard from reliable sources that a couple of your allocations to entities outside of the town have made comments to me that they've been able to secure grants to cover part of what they had planned to pay for through ARPA money. And the comment was made, we may be able to turn some money back. And, I suggested to them that they ought to reach out to you, because that has to be figured out before we get to the end of the year. Or, as you know, if they say, well, we didn't use it all, then we'll lose it. That's it for this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Passios. Mr. Burton.
George Burden, 39 Cortlandt Circle.
Thank you.
Just had a question for you, town manager, intern town manager. Was there a reason, or I guess first, it was when Mr. Gamel gave his notice of resignation? Can you share that?
All questions have to be addressed to the board, Mr. Burton.
So, Mr. Burton, as you're aware, this is a public comment, and we can read his letter of resignation. I think this was a planned retirement that Mr. Gamble had mentioned for the last couple of years.
Planned. It's kind of interesting that he became he came to the president of the association when he knew he was going to retire. A little kind of interesting. in that
Well, I mean,
respect, wasn't it?
people plan their
Yeah, it
retirements.
kind of puts an association in a bad step, right? He's there for less than a year, but anyways, I was just kind of curious about that, and so you can read his resignation.
Mr. Gamble communicated with me personally a couple of years ago that he was working on towards retirement, and that it was going to be in a couple of
You
years.
personally told me last year that you hated the guy and that he was no good for the town.
I never said that to you, George.
You did too tell me that, so don't tell me you didn't, Mr. Jeffries.
Right.
You've lost your soul.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
one
George.
question for you.
Yep.
Maybe you can answer this. Are you thinking about stepping down?
George, any other public comments?
That's my comment.
Thank
Yeah.
you. All right, do we have any other public comments this evening?
Thank you. John Bowen, 162 Highland Street. I just want to say thank you for rescinding that rule. I think that is that policy rule was just out of line. I don't even know where to begin with that one. I just want to say thank you very much for rescinding that, and I can understand the concerns everybody was getting from boards is, what can I say? What could I do? What could I print? What could I not print? I mean, that's stifling a censorship. And this board should never, ever censor anything from an employee of this town that your charter gives authority, ever, ever. That being said, my only concern is, as well as every member on this board has run for an office in this town, and not one of you have told us what political party you belong to or what direction that you believe. So I took it upon myself to look your voter registration up, but I'm not going to comment on that. You could provide that to us when you're ready. But but it would be good for you to tell the public, because the public would like to know. Most people in this town, I find, are undecided in what party they actually belong to. If you go through the voter rolls, most of them are undecided. It's pretty sad when there's no loyalty to any one direction. That is pretty pathetic. Lastly, I'd like to mention the hiring of Brenna Woods and the recent resignation of which I received in my email. My son's with me today, and he attends Lunenburg High School. She taught kindergarten to first graders in Billerica, and kindergartners. She taught these children behind the school's back CRT, white privilege, as well as insisting that, math be gender neutral of some sort. Instead of saying, 5 boys went here, we say 5 people, or whatever the case is. I find this to be pretty pathetic. My concern is this: where was the vetting from our superintendent of schools? Where is it? Where was it? Did she look at the social media posts? Go to Turtle Boy and see what he posted. He posted all her social media posts. Was she vetted by our superintendent before being hired? We just gave $983,000 to the school, did we not? To hire people, correct? What are we hiring? You need to supervise that school. That school needs to be supervised. The vetting process was improper. That being said, just a lack of looking at what social media she posts is a failure on the superintendent's part. And I'm not the only one in this town that's appalled to that hiring, and let alone, most of us don't believe that that was a resignation. We believe that it was. Probably shouldn't. And as far as the $4 million you were talking about, Mr. Jeffries, with regard to that policy, my other concern is this. If somebody did something wrong that's going to cost this town $4 million, and it has to do with the action of a town employee or anything, justice speaks, and justice is heard in a court, not by a political board. The court is the one that makes the decision about whether or not this town gets sued or it doesn't get sued, whether it's liable or non-liable, not a political board. And that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments this evening from the public? All right. Public comments from the board.
Just 2. First, I don't usually make it a habit to answer questions, but I will say that my enrollment in a party has been proudly and always unenrolled. I would enroll in independent, but in Massachusetts, it's not independent. It's called unenrolled. I always remark to myself how for a country who prides itself on independence, very few people at the state and federal level will vote for independence, which is always an ironic thing to me. But anyway, proudly that. Second of all, your comments regarding the school, I would say that should be directed to the school committee, because this board has literally zero oversight of the school committee. They are a duly elected body that take care of, by state law, the whole purview of the school department and grounds. So if you have comments of that nature, I would recommend that you bring it up with them, especially if they're meeting tomorrow. So, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments from the board? All right. I'll offer just a couple. I want to echo what Mr. Alonso just said about the school. I also, do want to respond succinctly to 2 other statements that were made. The town manager evaluation, we have historically been late doing the evaluation every single year. This year in particular, the town manager outlined a revised schedule for how we were going to go about doing the evaluation. I had sent out the evaluation to all members of the board, asked them to schedule meetings with the town manager during the first week of June. The town manager submitted her resignation that week and did not schedule those meetings, and the evaluation process was stopped. The first part of that process is a self-evaluation from the town manager, in which we receive that self-evaluation and then, do our own, and that was never received. And then, there was another comment, and, I haven't said this in all the previous requests from Mr. Burden, but I will be a little more specific with you today, George. The When you and I briefly met on Christmas Eve in 2022, what I offered to you at that time was that I had worked with, through First Realty Management, not a company that I own, but that I worked with First Realty Management for a while, and that through them that I'd worked with Mike Merrill and Rita Lynch, Merrill and Lynch, and that in working with them, that Mike Merrill was someone in the 80s who helped create the condo laws and worked with them, that him and Rita had one of the premier law firms in Massachusetts. And in that moment of trying to assist you, I encouraged you at that time to reach out to them, and that they could be a resource, that they fully understood condo law. I have stated several times, I will say it again, I have no awareness of who this law firm is. I think you were provided with a letter that said that there was no awareness. I recognize that I will continue to hear that you heard that this law firm represents me, and I recognize that you believe that. However, again, it just isn't true. All right, and that's all that I have for board comments this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Any additional discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes. The time is now 9:16, and the motion is, the meeting is adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.
That was a short meeting. What happened there?